Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new podcast to this new webinar, sorry, by the Policy Center for the New South. We are very happy to have as a distinguished guest again, Dr. Megumi Muto, Vice President of the Japan International Cooperation Agency and Chief Sustainability Officer. Thank you so much, Dr. Muto, for joining us again. We had the pleasure of having you with us in Marrakesh on the sidelines of the annual meetings. So we had the first interview with you, and thank you so much for taking some of your time to go through some of the points that you already raised, but through a presentation that Jica and yourself kindly prepared for the Policy Center for the New South and for our audience in Morocco and beyond. Thank you so much. The context in which we are doing this interview is notably that which follows few earthquakes that happened in the meantime. One of them was in Japan in the beginning of the year. And so we had the experience of noticing again firsthand how affected Japan as a country could be by earthquakes, but also how resilient and efficient it could be in facing very strong earthquakes. So Dr. Megumi Muto, thank you so much again for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Akram-san, and thank you for the Policy Center for the New South for this opportunity to speak in this very important webinar. The title is Japan's Experience of Recovery and Reconstruction After Earthquakes. Before I start, maybe let me mention a few words about JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency. I'm using my slides. Okay, yeah. JICA is one of the world's largest bilateral development agencies, and we are the implementer of Japan's ODA, Overseas Development Assistance. And we support developing countries for SDGs, Sustainable Development. We have many menu of assistance. One is finance and investment. The other is grant aid. And we also have very extensive technical cooperation. And in the context of disaster response and disaster risk reduction, maybe I can also mention that we have an emergency disaster relief team. It is written at the right bottom side of the slide. Actually, we send medical teams as well as infrastructure team to areas affected by disasters. And I myself was a member of the team being sent to the Philippines after the super typhoon Haiyan or Yolanda. JICA's mission is in line with the SDGs. We put human security and quality growth as our twin objectives, but it is really with the spirit of leaving no one behind, and also end poverty, improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth. And one of the very important pillars is resilience, as you see in the right-hand side. There we are talking about our experience in Bangladesh in the enhancement of resilience against climate change and coastal disaster. So we take a holistic sense. We do climate adaptation, but also disaster risk reduction under the same approach of resilience. Today, I will first share with you Japan's disaster experience, leading to the concept of Build Back Better, and then share how JICA is supporting partner countries, in particular taking the example of Nepal. Maybe I show one little video piece at the very beginning. Yeah, so this was January 1st this year, 2024. I was with my father and sister in a care home south of Tokyo. South of Tokyo was not affected, but when families were gathering to wish well for the new year, the Noto Peninsula, which is more on the northern side of Japan, was hit by magnitude 7.6 earthquake. The earthquake triggered tsunami. It was not just a seismic movement, but tsunami. And then fire in an old market area. And also important to note that there was a liquefaction across the region. More than 200 deaths were confirmed, and more than 20,000 are either in evacuation centers or under community self-help. Under the chilling snow. So the season is very challenging. There are also reports of deaths after evacuating, therefore. Some communities are still inaccessible by road. But stories are emerging, underscoring the importance of being prepared. New structures built based on the building codes enforced many times after the 80s, survived the earthquake. And also the bullet train Shinkansen, these slowed down, but with the early warning system, the rail itself was not affected and resumed operation soon. Evacuation centers now are run with teams of partner municipalities coming from all over the country. And also power line engineers, water engineers came for help. Civil society service providers, such as free car rental services, are also in. Water startup company provided on-site shower. Donations are pouring in through online systems of other municipalities who are volunteering to shoulder the administrative work. So we see a strong resilience among people. But all in all, we always feel extreme natural disaster events are beyond human forecasts. And there is never a perfect preparation ex ante. But still, we can strive to lower the risk, disaster risk reduction, and learn through the experiences and build back better. Sharing with you these lessons today is a global public good, coming from the bottom of the heart of Japanese people. Let me go into the section number 1, talking about Japanese experience. The University of Stuttgart publishes the World Risk Report every year. In the latest report, Japan was third in terms of exposure to risk. But vulnerabilities, susceptibility, and lack of coping capacity, there the scores are very low. So in the total risk index, we are 24th. The top 5 among the total risk index is Philippines, Indonesia, India, Mexico, and Colombia. So we really feel the need to share lessons and help each other. Of course, including Morocco with the recent earthquake. Among natural disasters, Japan has a nest of earthquakes with 4 tectonic plates meeting all over the archipelago. During 2004 and 2013, there were 259 earthquakes, more than 6.0 in magnitude, almost 1/5 of the ones in the world. We also host 8% of active volcanoes in the world. And this is not the end of the natural disasters that we encounter. We have typhoons, landslides, flood-related disaster. As we all share, climate change is intensifying these water-based natural disasters. We all went through unprecedented heat during summer 2023. Not to forget the tsunami that often occur after earthquakes in the coastal areas. So why am I listing all these historical natural disasters? In the next slide, I put them into chronological order with the numbers of deaths on the vertical line. If the reduction of number of deaths is a KPI in disaster risk reduction, the years after World War II witnessed a it was not good, but it reduced and stabilized at a low level, especially after the Ise-1 typhoon of 1959. But the Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake of 1995 and the Great East Japan earthquake of 2011 came as a hazard of absolutely unprecedented level, combined with multiple other risks coming through, and forced us to really update on how to substantially think about building back better. So all in all, we are doing our best efforts to prepare for the next disaster, but always there's a betrayal from the nature side. Yeah, we really have to think about the reality that more magnitude comes in, and also it comes in multiple ways. This slide is a summary of what we have learned from many disasters and the different measures that we have introduced. So it's not in a logical order, but it's a chronological order that we have went through, and indicating the important policies following these experiences. The first is the introduction, the seismic forces consideration in laws and regulations. Second is the Tokyo urban reconstruction planning. And also after the Ise-1 typhoon, it's the enactment of disaster countermeasure basic law. And then it is the promotion of earthquake resistant construction after the Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake. Then we even go into the underscoring of self-help and mutual help. And then after the Great East Japan earthquake of 2011, we really went into the review of review of the estimation of damage of larger scale disasters, and then placing disaster mitigation as a principle, and also promoting community disaster risk reduction activities. Maybe I start with the first turning point, which was the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923. This was even before the World War II. The population of Tokyo was 4 million people. Deaths unaccounted for amounted to 105,000, mostly by the crash of wooden houses and vulnerable buildings and the fire that succeeded. It was estimated that 40% of Japan's GDP was lost, and the capital and the economic center was directly hit. It was really, the epicenter was very close to Tokyo. And then in response to that, the first building law for earthquake was introduced next year, almost at the same time when Italy introduced a similar law and regulation. And at the same time, the first urban reconstruction plan was formulated aiming at an earthquake and fire-resistant capital city. The cost was estimated as approximately 4 trillion yen, but of course, it was never realized fully. But then there are many important features of that plan to be remembered. There were plans for wide range roads that was introduced in order to make sure that there would be a less traffic congestion when disasters come. And also they are plotted public parks all around the city, especially around the schools as evacuation centers, in order to make sure that there will be ample ground for people to evacuate and stay there safe. Maybe I turn to the next slide. Okay, which is describing some of the land use systems that started developing around this time, and it's still used today. One is really to make sure that the houses are consolidated and there will be a more efficient and safe land use plan. As you see in the left lower side, some buildings were consolidated into one commonly shared building so that there will be enough open space as well as people for residences and businesses. And also, as you see in the right-hand side, there has been a lot of land use readjustment being done. This is really a bottom-up process of consolidating all the property owned by different people into better land use for disaster risk reduction. Then I turn to the next turning point, which was a typhoon. That was 1959. And the maximum pressure was 895 hectopascal, and the maximum wind speed was 75 meters per second. The casualties were more than 5,000, and including the city of Nagoya and many other coastal centers. The magnitude can be compared to the Typhoon Haiyan or Yolanda in 2013 in the Philippines. This Ise-1 typhoon was a turning point for establishing a standardized disaster risk reduction governance, including the enactment of the Disaster Countermeasures Basic Act of 1961. The act stipulated the establishment of the Central Disaster Management Council, provision of the roles on authorities or related ministries, and provision on the budget appropriation. So in retrospect, we can say that this was really trying to establish at least a top-down system. But of course, later on, with more experiences, we try to bring in the bottom-up component as well. But at least in the 60s, the approach was top-down. And as a result of all these measures, at the recovery stage from Ise-1 typhoon, when Japan was continuing reconstruction work after the World War II, investment for disaster risk reduction amounted to 5 to 8% of the national budget. These were public works, including flood control, coastal management, landslide management, and among others, mainly hard structural measures. In parallel, efforts continue to improve laws and regulations as well as scientific research to investigate the mechanism behind the hazards, which paved the way to develop prediction and some early warning frameworks and capabilities. And the result of these disaster risk reduction investments ex ante are shown here in terms of decrease of flood-caused deaths and flood area. I have personally asked the fellow engineers what was the drive behind this. It shouldn't have been easy, right? This was a very a daunting effort. I found out that there was a court decision defining that the responsibility, there's a responsibility of the state in protecting people from floods. So there was this risk of being pursued in the court if the government did not do that. So this was really one of the driving forces behind this. Right. But even with this, in this era of climate change, with moving targets of hazard intensity, people working every day for this are feeling that the reality has gone somewhere way beyond the old assumption that we can reduce the risk to zero if we invest a lot in hard structure. So we have to change the approach. Then next is the turning point number 3. Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake of 1995. Maybe you were born by this time. Yes? yes. Okay. So this is more recent. Right. The investment for disaster risk reduction has been increasing historically, especially in the public sector, but still, when we were hit by this disaster, we realized that that was not enough. The Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake caused a major urban catastrophe, destroying houses, disrupting lifelines, and paralyzing traffic and supply chains. It was also true that the extent of civil society participation in response was phenomenal. So this was the kind of like a positive side of this devastating experience. They came from all over the country. With these new realities, a recognition emerged that government cannot be the only source for response. It should be also taking in consideration this vast willingness of the civil society to come directly into the picture. So in addition to the public health of the national and local governments, a disaster risk reduction framework was reinvented, including self-help, individuals, family, enterprises, and also mutual help across regions, communities, and also individual volunteers from all over the country and the world coming for the joint effort. Another aspect that was pushed forward with the experience of a great Hanshin Awaji earthquake was the promotion of earthquake resistant construction, focusing on retrofitting. Many buildings that did not meet the seismic standard of 1981 unfortunately collapsed. So in response, a new act was pushed, Act on the Promotion of Earthquake-Proof Retrofit of Buildings. Target buildings were hospitals, shops, inns, and hotels used by the public, and schools, care homes with people that require special attention. Review of the resistance level and were made, and these information were made public as a mandatory thing to do. In addition, the scope of retrofit design was expanded when the building owners seek the construction approval from the local government. So there was wider scope in what was considered a retrofit, and as long as the final goal was attained. Lastly, a new public accreditation system to evaluate the earthquake resistance was introduced for transparency and accountability for each house and each building. Actually, even my house has a accredited level of seismic resistance. Okay. So this topic of earthquake resistance quality control is a great precursor to the next and last turning point, which is the Great East Japan earthquake of 2011. In the city of Sendai, the economic center of Northeast Japan, there were only 1% of the houses partially damaged. So all the buildings at least survived the earthquake. But of course, the devastation came with a tsunami that followed. But at least if we focus on the issue of how buildings were retrofitted, Sendai city did a very good job. Yeah. So let me show what Sendai city was doing even before the 2011 big earthquake. Was that in 1999, they set targets for seismic retrofitting for the city-owned properties. And then in 2005, they co-hosted Sendai Disaster Prevention Fair with the Cabinet Secretariat. And then in 2008, they formulated Sendai City Earthquake Disaster Prevention Strategy. So they were like a really well prepared, at least on this retrofit of buildings. And based on this, Sendai City Hall, municipality schools, fire stations has been being seismically reinforced. And then private residences, houses, they have been assisted with the seismic diagnosis, and the subsidies were provided for the retrofitting. Let me then next go to the turning point number 4, which is the Great East Japan earthquake of 2011. First and foremost, the lesson from the Great East Japan earthquake 2011 is that the magnitude of the hazard can be well beyond our imagination, and that many types of hazard come at the same time. I mean, even if you don't like it, I mean, if you are in the coastal area, earthquake, and after that, tsunami will come. The magnitude was 9, seismic intensity was 7. Earthquake was not only in the northeast region, but paralyzed the capital city, Tokyo. In Tokyo, we had felt the earthquake, and we all evacuated. And in the Tohoku region, a tsunami followed, which was the main cause of more than 20,000 deaths. Nuclear power stations were affected. The Fukushima power station was in unprecedented deep trouble, and the power utility company had to ration power distribution for almost 2 weeks. So there was a realization that we have to be prepared to hazards that come once in 1,000 years. Multi-defense measures should be taken. Inevitably, there came the realization that we cannot reduce all risks ex ante with structural measures. Reduce the risk as much as we can, but relying on other soft, non-structural measures became the norm. This is including social community participation. In terms of how to prepare, the importance of bottom-up community disaster risk reduction plan was put forward. This is one pillar of the soft non-structural measures. It is planning before disaster, but also planning for build back better after the disaster. Also, in line with the self-help and mutual help, which is a lesson from the Hanshi Awaji earthquake. So we are combining lessons from the former disasters and are realizing new realities and trying to be better next. Participatory planning is the founding pillar. The Kesennuma city, a major fishing industry cluster, was one of the models of participatory planning in this recovery. In the city, the Inner Bay District Reconstruction Town Development Council, consisting of citizens, local businesses, was established after the earthquake and tsunami, and this council played a central role in the facilitation on the communication among stakeholders and decision-making. Especially what was at the stake of this council decision-making was how to design and utilize the land around the new 10-meter high coastal embankment. So Kesennuma fishing businesses, including fishermen, the fish market, processing companies, and other affiliated industries, work hard for the rapid reconstruction because fishing is seasonal and fishes cannot wait for the recovery. So it is very urgent. On the other hand, the tourism industry, which was the other major business, wanted to keep the value of the landscape, of course, right? The citizens cared for the livability as well as the employment opportunity in the city. So Fisheries and Tourist Center was reconstructed with bottom-up vision and value creation together with heightened resilience. And at the end of this section, I would like to touch upon the role of early warning in the in earthquake. Let us be clear. For earthquake, early warning is not a substitute for reinforcement of buildings, but it is a great complement. When earthquake hit, maybe you have just a few seconds to position yourself in a safer place, like under the tables, but then the building, the resistance of the buildings will be really key. But in this little time period, in the few seconds, to protect yourself, the early warning system that comes through your mobile phone, comes from TV, comes from other measures is really, really key in helping your life. So once again, it's early warning system is very important, but it's not a substitute for building reinforcement. Both should be done. Next slide, please. Yeah. And also, tsunami advisory has been developed, and it was also very instrumental in the case of the Great East Japan earthquake situation. It's not perfect science. It is affected by the configuration of land and sea depth at each coastal segment, but it guides people to evacuate to high areas as soon as possible. So it is really important to save the lives. But once again, yes, it's not a substitute for building measures. Okay. Now, let me go into the section number 2, which is around the concept of build back better. Just 1 second, please. Right. So what is the concept of building back better? It is shown in this slide. And the central issue is really learning from each disaster incident and doing better in preparing for the next one to come. But as we see in the next slide, there's one caveat. Maybe for a high frequency, low hazard type of natural disasters, we can say that we will learn from each experience and we do better. That's fine for some like more frequent, like some flood events. But as we all share, Morocco, Japan, all, for earthquakes, the big ones come in not a frequent way, right? So we have to encourage ourselves to do a periodic assessment, learning from other countries' experiences, and then, learn by periodically doing the next round of risk assessments. That is really the key for earthquake risk reduction planning. So once again, there are many hazards in your country, high frequent ones, low frequent ones, extreme events. But when we focus our attention on low frequency, but very devastating earthquakes, we have to motivate ourselves that we do this round of learning and building back better by ourselves. We have to do the risk assessments in a time period that we set ourselves. We don't have the luxury to learn from each actual experience and be better. That is a central message of building back better. Right. So this is really the summary of the concept of build back better. The first point is it's not only structural measures, but also soft measures, including all development issues and fields. It should be across sectors. And then, having said that, the infrastructure and the functionality of the government should be protected in order to keep the like a response functionality. And at the same time, we have to accelerate the implementation of national plans. Once again, we have to set our cycle of reassessing the risks periodically. And my key message for this is at the very end, at all levels of governance. It's not only the central government top down, but it's also from bottom up, from communities, municipalities, cities, regions, and then informing the national level. Yeah. So in order to illustrate this importance of all level of governance, let me just share the case of how one municipality was recovering after the Great East Japan earthquake of 2011, focusing on the formulation of city reconstruction plan. A city reconstruction plan includes a community participatory approach on land use, relocation, and then plans for future evacuation, disaster prevention plan, evacuation training. And also, most importantly, for the communities, creating a mechanism or system for passing down the transition for the communities, and also the transition of being prepared by periodically assessing the risks involved in the communities. In the Higashi Matsushima city, very close to Sendai, since the very early stage of evacuation, there were an intention to keep the communities together. There were so many opportunities created for community interaction, and there were plans for group discussions held in the evacuation centers or even in the restored communities. The keywords were networks and interrelationship, communication, healthcare, really caring for the health of each individual, and creating hope together. It says a mental outlook here in this slide. Maybe this term is not the politically correct one, but yes, it shows how the management of the positiveness in your mind was really key. One example was a creation of a women's embroidery group. Women getting together, doing handwork together. This was sustained for 4 years and 4 months. More than 500 gatherings with more than 5,000 participants. Knitting, embroidery, painting, baking, even focusing on single mothers gatherings, tea. These were very simple but very important. These were spaces for women to gather and heal, and created this willingness, positive willingness to connect with others. And that eventually led to not just self-restoration, but also community, and then city planning restoration as well. The next slide is more the formal side, which is the formulation of the city, community and city reconstruction plan. More than 2,000 citizens were involved for this Higashimatsushima city reconstruction plan, which at the very end of the day, every individual agreed with her location. More than 80% approval rate. It's not like 100% perfect, but it shows the effort of the communities to move forward together for the future. And in concrete terms, what did that mean? The next slide, please. Yeah, this was really about how communities relocate together, because many communities, the fisher folks in particular, were in the coastal areas. They had to be relocated to higher areas into a semi-mountainous hilly area, right? And there were so many debates on which community will go where, and whether individuals are allowed to go to other places. But I think the principles were safe collective relocation, respecting local ties, and then enabling sustainable lifestyles with convenient transport link and railway stations close by. So all in all, with these turning points and lessons, maybe it's not a straightforward linear history. It's a zigzag learning and combining lessons. But how, as Japan, we try to create a message to the global world about the importance of being prepared for the resilience. We proposed the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, 2015-2013, a UN approved framework. So the priority number one is understanding your own disaster risk. Policies and practices for disaster risk management should be based on an understanding of your disaster risk in all the dimensions, including vulnerability, capacity, exposure of persons and assets, hazard characteristics, and the environment in the holistic way. The second pillar is strengthening disaster risk governance to manage disaster risk. And here, disaster risk governance means national, regional, global, and of course, community levels. And there should be an effective and coordinated way of managing disaster risk. Priority number 3 is investing in disaster risk reduction for resilience. This is structural and non-structural measures. This is really essential, including the buildings that will protect your lives. And the priority number 4 is enhancing disaster preparedness for effective response and to build back better in recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. Why so much of emphasis in this building back better? Because especially in developing context, the country has to grow, but at the same time has to reconstruct. So we have to strike two objectives at the same time. Build back better to grow more and rehabilitate better and prepare for the next set of disasters. So this is a message for the developing context, building back better. Okay, so in this last section, I would like to talk a little bit about Jica's cooperation on disaster risk reduction and building back better. So based on our own experiences in the country, we are focusing on 3 pillars. One is strengthen the overall disaster risk reduction governance, including non-structural measures. So it is both infrastructure investment as well as mobilizing, training, governments, all levels and communities for better governance as a whole. So this is really where the technical assistance takes a big role. And the second pillar is to gradually augment the structural measures. This is really infrastructure investment, so maybe our concessional finance for governments play a key role. And then the third one is promote build back better, accelerating disaster risk reaction in reconstruction process. As I have mentioned, this dual objective to keep the growth development going at the same time prepare for the future. So it is not an easy task, especially for very vulnerable communities, but we are trying to be on their side and support them. Maybe the best example to show this third pillar is an example of an activity in Nepal. It's a project for the assessment of earthquake disaster risks for the Kathmandu Valley. This is not just a scientific kind of like activity. No, it's really risk assessment and also helping the communities in building with reinforced buildings. In Nepal, in 2015, there was a big earthquake of 7.5 magnitude that killed more than, approximately 8,000 people, injured more than 22,000 people, and destroyed 510,000 houses. There were hardly any earthquake resistant structures or restrictions on land use or building regulation in Nepal. That was the reality. So very vulnerable. The objective of this assistance is really supporting the stakeholders in Kathmandu Valley to do a hazard assessment, which is the pillar number 1 of the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, and then planning for the build back better. There is one video that shows the essence of this assistance, and maybe it's better described by the video.
2072 साल वैशाख 12 गतेको विनाशकारी भूकम्प र वैशाख 29 को शक्तिशाली पराकम्पनमा परि करिब 9,000 मानिसले ज्यान गुमाए भने ठूलो मात्रामा जनधनको क्षति भयो। 7.8 र 7.3 म्याग्निच्युडको शक्तिशाली कम्पन र पराकम्पनले 5 लाख भन्दा बढी घरहरूमा पूर्ण वा आंशिक रूपमा क्षति पुग्यो, जसका कारणले 30 लाख मानिस घरबारविहीन भए। 7,000 भन्दा बढी विद्यालयका भवन भत्काएको सो विनाशकारी भूकम्पले देशभरका हजारौं बालबालिकाहरूको भविष्य अन्योलमा पार्यो। काठमाडौँ उपत्यकाका अधिकांश प्राचीन सांस्कृतिक सम्पदाहरू भग्नावशेषमा परिणत भए। गोर्खा, सिन्धुपाल्चोक र काठमाडौँ उपत्यका भूकम्पले सबैभन्दा धेरै प्रभाव पारेका क्षेत्रहरू मध्येका थिए। भूकम्पको क्षति भौतिक पूर्वाधारमा मात्र सीमित रहेन, यसले लाखौं मानिसहरूको जीविकोपार्जनमा अप्ठ्यारो पार्नुका साथै स्थानीय अर्थतन्त्रमा समेत निकै ठूलो क्षति गर्यो। उक्त विनाशकारी भूकम्प लगत्तै जापान सरकार र जाइकाले तत्काल आपतकालीन अवस्थामा राहत मार्फत सहयोग पुर्यायो। जाइकाको सहयोग त्यति मात्र रहेन, त्यसपछि अझ राम्रो र बलियो बिल्ड ब्याक बेटर निर्माणको अवधारणालाई अवलम्बन गर्दै विभिन्न पुनर्लाभका कार्यहरू जाइकाले गर्यो। जाइकाले भूकम्प प्रभावित व्यक्तिहरूको क्षमता विकास गरेर उत्थानशील देश र समाज निर्माण गर्नका लागि विभिन्न कार्यक्रम मार्फत योगदान पुर्याएको छ। भूकम्पपछिको भयावह अवस्थामा जापान सरकारले सहयोगमा देखाएको तदारुकता उल्लेखनीय छ। भूकम्प लगत्तै जापान डिजास्टर रिलिफ टोली सहयोग गर्न नेपाल आइपुग्यो, जुन टोलीमा उद्धार, मेडिकल र प्रतिरक्षाका समूहहरू थिए। भूकम्पका कारण मानिसहरूका आधारभूत आवश्यकताहरूको अभाव भएको अवस्थामा जापान सरकारले जाइका मार्फत विपदबाट प्रभावित व्यक्तिहरूका लागि पाल, कम्बल र अन्य आपतकालीन राहत सामग्रीहरू सहयोग गर्यो। जाइकाले क्षतिग्रस्त काठमाडौँ, भक्तपुर र सिन्धुली सडकको तुरुन्तै पुनर्स्थापनाको काम सम्पन्न गरी अवरुद्ध सडक सञ्जाल जोड्नलाई निकै महत्त्वपूर्ण भूमिका निर्वाह समेत गरेको थियो। जापान सरकारले आफ्नो मानवीय सहायतालाई निरन्तरता दिँदै गोर्खा, धादिङ र नुवाकोट गरी 3वटा जिल्लाहरूमा आंशिक रूपमा क्षतिग्रस्त विद्यालय संरचनाहरू पुनर्स्थापना गर्न र 184 कक्षा कोठा मर्मत गर्न आपतकालीन सहायता प्रदान समेत गर्यो। भूकम्पपछि नेपालको पुनर्निर्माणमा जाइकाले खेलेको भूमिका निकै महत्त्वपूर्ण छ। जापान सरकारको औपचारिक विकास सहायता अफिसियल डेभलपमेन्ट असिस्टेन्स ODA को ऋण सहयोगमा सञ्चालित इमर्जेन्सी हाउसिङ रिकन्स्ट्रक्सन प्रोजेक्ट EHRP आपतकालीन आवास पुनर्निर्माण परियोजना जाइकाको प्रमुख पहलहरू मध्येको एक थियो। सो परियोजना भूकम्प प्रतिरोधी मापदण्डहरू प्रयोग गरी घरहरू पुनर्निर्माण गर्न तथा घरधनीहरूलाई उनीहरूको जीवन पुनर्स्थापना गर्न मद्दत गर्ने उद्देश्यले डिजाइन गरिएको थियो। जाइकाले भूकम्प
Thank you. So it described all the array of activities that we have deployed for our partners in Nepal, starting from the emergency assistance to quick rehabilitation work, but also, most importantly, helping the residents in building back better, in particular in terms of the structure of their houses. So far, I have been focused on the Japanese experience and how JICA is sharing the learnings to partner countries in terms of how to do disaster risk reduction and building back better. But finance is needed for these activities. That's really a key question. And it is easy to say that the national budget will take care, but the national budget itself has vulnerabilities. The Philippines Department of Finance, for example, has developed a strong risk finance strategy, which is categorizing risks in terms of frequency and severity and allotting financial instruments to manage these risks. Next slide. Yeah. So you see, they categorize low frequency, high severity to high frequency, low severity risks. and a lot diverse financial instruments, including sovereign risk transfer, insurance, contingent financing. By the way, Jica has supported this by our ODA concessional loan to the government. They are also unprogrammed contingency fund, national local disaster risk reduction and management funds, quick response funds. So this shows how a country can approach risk disaster risk reduction from fiscal management side. And then further, in the rehabilitation and reconstruction, massive resources for disaster risk reduction investment for the future is necessary. One solution is concessional sovereign loan that JICA offers to countries like Tunisia, Indonesia, and India, in addition to the Philippines. To finance that for ourselves, JICA has recently issued a disaster resilience bond as part of our sustainability bond issuance. So you see the projects that were backed by this disaster resilience bonds. Just to touch a little bit more on the examples. Yeah, the actual investments that we are supporting in the Philippines is the flood control measures, especially in the capital region. In the capital region, there are several river systems, and because it's a very stretched, very narrow capital region, it's really vulnerable to flood risks. And our support for the government concessional loan is used for these structural measures alongside with soft non-structural measures, including the technical assistance approach to government level, city level, as well as communities. In the next slide, I touch upon the support for Indonesia after the earthquake in the Sulawesi province 2020. This is aimed at the reconstruction after the earthquake, and there are three components: roads, bridges, coastal dikes. Component 2 is irrigation, river improvement, and countermeasures against liquefaction. This is something that needs a lot of technical expertise, and we are learning. Everyone is learning, and we try to bring the best science available. And then, of course, we support the reconstruction of the public facilities. And in concluding, I wish to stress that the recovery and reconstruction, disaster risk reduction, is both top-down and bottom-up. All layers of governance have important roles. And as I have lastly touched, finance is important. Disaster risk finance framework and use of concessional loan can be great hints to move forward. I hope you found those insights useful, and we are very much willing to continue our discussion and our joint journey for resilience in the whole of the societies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Megumi Muto. It was incredibly insightful. I was actually going to conclude on the last points that you raised. So precisely the different levels of governance, mutual help, self-help, and public help, involving the civil society in the resilience, in the response, and in the reconstruction effort, and the financing. Last, you touched upon this at the end, mentioning some different ways of doing this, but also taking into account the scarcity of resources for a lot of developing nations and the necessity for them to see to their own growth, which remains their priority, growth and development. There is something in particular that caught my attention among the many very interesting points that you mentioned, but one of them was about the multiplying effect of investing in resilience before. So from 4 times to 15 times, from what you said. So there is a lot of money that can actually be saved by investing in resilience beforehand, and this is also something that should be in mind for developing nations in view of their scarcity of resources, but also in view of the dramatic and catastrophic natural events and disasters that may arise in the future. Thank you so much, Dr. Megumi Muto. It was so insightful. Thank you for your time. We know how busy you are, so really appreciate the time that you dedicated to this conversation. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. It was really my great pleasure. And really, I'm offering a joint journey. Yeah, all of us together. Yeah, we have to bring these minds, these experiences, and learn, go zigzag together, but always for the better future. Thank you.
Indeed, if that was a last point, the learning by doing, the zigzag learning, the curve that is not linear is also a key thing, and learning from each other. Thank you so much again. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.